Bluish Chapter 4. The Project. Drini got to class just after Miss Baker emptied her briefcase and put her lunch in her desk. "Well, good morning to you, Drianne," Miss Baker said, calling Drini by her proper name. "We're both the first ones today. I don't know what I would do if I didn't see you or Tulipia near the front of the morning." She used Tuli's full name also. Grinning, "Yes, ma'am. Morning, Miss Baker," Drini said. Then Miss Baker got busy with her work, and Drini went to the fake tree in the corner on the couch side of the room, just beyond the double windows. She bent low behind the tree and was careful not to knock into any of the decorations. She found the plug and put it in the wall socket. Suddenly, tiny lights blinked, on, off, on, off, on, off, red, green, and white, over and over. "It's magic, Miss Baker," Drini exclaimed. Straightening up, she stood still a moment to admire their tree. All week, students had been bringing in ornaments for it. There was a Santa Claus and her own shiny reindeer that Drini liked the best. Miss Baker had brought a kinara, the candelabra with 7 branches for the Kwanzaa holiday. It was on a bookcase. There was a small menorah for Hanukkah on a corner table. Bluish had brought that in. It had 9 candles and 9 branches. They had books in the bookcase about each holiday, Christmas and Ramadan too. Somebody had been eating the candy canes that Miss Baker put on the tree. "Oh, I don't mind," she said when Drini told her. "It's the magic of the holiday spirit and a new year coming." She added a few more candy canes each day. Drini could hear students in the lower, then upper halls. She heard lockers banging open, clicks slamming shut, and then the rush and busy murmurings as students found their places. The littlest kids were in the downstairs classes. There was a muffled sound of school buses crunching frozen slush in front of the school building. Bluish. Drini took up her book bag and leaned on the side of the couch. She sat there in her place as the building rang with sounds, echoing noise. She closed her eyes for a moment. She could hear that some first and second grade classes downstairs were having a party first thing. She got a whiff of a warm, sweet cookie smell rising on the air to the top floor and this 5th grade double room. My new school. Not new anymore. And my class. This, my corner, Drini thought, looking around. Always she thought that. First thing in the morning, claiming one corner of the couch. She took out her yellow pad about the project they would do. They had to decide about it. She would keep notes, but she wasn't the one to write it all down. And she waited for the room to feel warm and cozy with all the kids she knew. She had come to feel a good part of the whole. Even though she was closest to Tuli, she had no special friend yet, but she liked all her classmates. The students went to their lockers 1 by 1 or 2 by 2, and then they came in. Rid of their coats, cheeks flushed in a rosy glow. 2 weeks had passed since Drini had told her about Bluish. If Bluish came today, she might stay for the whole day because of the project. A few times her mom had come for her when she'd had a doctor's appointment. One time, on the spur of the moment, Drini had asked Miss Baker to let her and Tuli see that Bluish got to the first floor and she'd let them. So, yesterday, when Miss Winburn came and waited downstairs, Drini and Tuli got on the elevator after Bluish. They made sure the door stayed open until her chair wheels were inside. They hung back on each side of her. She had her puppy with her, and they petted its head. "Lucky you get to ride too," Drini had said, smiling, looking down at the floor. Pretending she and Tuli were on the early shift for lunch, and not there just to watch out for Bluish. Well, they didn't need to pretend. Bluish knew from the start. She looked up at them, and the half minute it took to go down. Drini couldn't say what the look was exactly, but she'd come to know the many different ways Bluish had of looking at you. Sad looks, afraid looks, and watchful ones. One of her mean looks could just cut into you. But yesterday, Bluish had looked pleased to have Drini and Tuli there. They'd reached the ground floor with Bluish. It was Drini's turn to take hold of her chair and push it off the elevator. One time, Bluish had said, "I can do it." Tuli had said the same thing, but Tuli would jerk the chair and scare Bluish. Sometimes, when Bluish was frightened, Lucky would bark. "Rrr, rrr, rrr," it sounded like. "You tell me when you want one of us to push you," Dreeny had told Bluish. Over a couple of weeks, there grew this way of talking and doing things between them. It blossomed and spread all over the classroom. It was as if Dreeny knew how to act toward Bluish. Never too close, never too far away. Never to put on being friendly, but always be yourself. "Hola, girlfriend!" It was Tuli, up right in her face. Dreeny jumped, startled. She'd been thinking so hard. "Tuli," she said evenly. Tuli plopped down beside her on the couch. Kids were taking their places. They knew what to do. Miss Baker and the college intern, Max McKee, had prepared them. They were to get started on special interest projects. In some way, they were to present something unique about their city. Max had helped them form into groups, 4 or 5 of them in a group. Dreeny, Tuli, and Paula, who came by bus, but she was allowed to take the subway sometimes. And Natalie. Bluish. Dreeny had asked for her when none of the other groups had. Today, they would spend time discussing their projects. They had more than a week to research, collect data, write, and present. Miss Baker said each one of them had an equal share in what they decided to do. "You'll need to cooperate with one another," Miss Baker told them, once the class had settled in. "You'll have to figure it all out and agree about it. It would help if you would write down the agreement, just a few sentences. I'd like to see it." Dreeny and Paula had the privilege of leaving the school grounds to walk over to Broadway. It was on file in the office that they could have lunch outside at one of 3 places approved by the school. Paula had thought up the project. Since they all knew Broadway, they would photograph some of what they saw every day. That would be their data. Dreeny wished she'd thought of it. All of them were eager to have it work. Bluish came in, always last, when she came at all. Almost always the first to leave. Rolling in her chair, right up to the couch. They all said hi to her. She had her puppy Lucky in her lap. She was wearing a little knit dog coat that matched Bluish's hat. "So cute!" Tuli exclaimed. Bluish took Lucky's coat off, but she didn't remove her hat. It was a chartreuse, green and blue and red skull hat that had pulled down over her ears. Dreeny thought the combination of colors made Bluish look paler, bluer. They talked about how cold it was. "Wish summer would hurry up," Dreeny said. She smiled at Bluish, reached over and petted Lucky. Bluish watched. Then they got down to work. First, they agreed that Paula should write down everything on her yellow pad because she had the best handwriting. "Okay, I'm ready to write the agreement," Paula said, tossing her long black hair. "What's it to be?" "Let's talk about who's good at what," Bluish said. "Yeah," Dreeny said. "Tuli's good at seeing everything on the street, and she can tell Paula a lot of things to write down." "I know everything between here and 113th Street, Tuli told them. "I kid you none." "Knows everything and everybody. I've seen her," Dreeny said matter-of-factly. "Who could miss her?" Paula said dryly, writing it down. "Okay, then what will you do?" she asked Dreeny. "I can take the pictures. I've used my dad's camera before. It's a good one." She was about to ask Paula to be her backup when Bluish said, "I can help you." "Really?" Dreeny asked. "I'm allowed to go outside," she said in her squeaky voice. It seemed to come from deep inside of her, "just so long as there's somebody responsible with me." Surprised, they couldn't help staring at her. Pale little thing in a wheelchair, Dreeny thought. Well, why not? "Well, we'll have to take turns pushing you then," Paula said. "I don't think I'll be any good at that." She fidgeted, looking away as Bluish smirked at her. "It's not anything hard to do," Dreeny said. They fell silent a moment, surrounded by the noise of other students talking, asking Miss Baker and Max questions. "We need to figure out how it should happen, from point to point," Bluish said. Her bony hands roamed over Lucky's sleek fur. Her voice seemed larger as each day they grew more used to the sound of it. Dreeny, Bluish, and Paula were quick to understand the process, quick to realize that they had to show Tuli. "Here's what we're doing, Tuli. You remember? Drini asked. I forget. We're going to go out of school, maybe on Wednesday, and look around. We'll all go together and take some pictures, too. So what's the agreement? Paula asked. What am I writing down to show Miss Baker? Let's just write, ours is a street project, Bluish said. There will be photographs and word descriptions of Broadway on a poster board mounting. Hey, that's really good, Paula said. I'll write it, okay? Agree, everybody. They all agreed. Sign it with our names, Drini said. Put mine first, Tuli said. Tuli, let's do it alphabetically, Drini said. D first, then N for Natalie, then Paula, then Tuli. Putting me last, Tuli said. Thank you very much, my homie. Well, somebody has to be last, Paula said. That's nothing. Somebody has to be first and second, Bluish said with a faint smile. I've never been first at anything. She managed a short, squeaky laugh. They grinned, and then they laughed. After they made a general plan, they could choose the size of the poster board and where they would put it. We'll take lots of pictures, Drini said. Won't we, Bluish? Bluish frowned. My mom doesn't like kids calling me that, but you can. It depends on the spelling. Drini didn't understand. Sorry. Natalie, then. She felt embarrassed. Forget it, Bluish said. It hadn't taken them long to plan their project. Max read their agreement and gave it an okay. Afterward, Bluish wheeled up to one of the big tables with Lucky on the floor beside her. He looked up at her eagerly and jumped around whenever a kid got up. But he didn't stray far from Bluish's side. She gave him tidbits, and he had a little bone he chewed on. Bluish cut paper and made a sign, rolled over the decorated tree, and taped the sign to one of the branches. It read, Hanukkah Bush, in black marker. Miss Baker watched Bluish, but made no comment. Kids like Drini, who saw Bluish go up to the tree, didn't say anything either. Bluish made a second sign. She wound string around 2 paper clips. She clipped them to the sign and put the sign around her neck. The letters were squiggly, not as bold as on the other sign. I was born human. I'm named Natalie. Underneath that, there were tiny printed words. But you can call me Bluish. Drini braced herself when Bluish came toward her. Bluish struggled now to turn the wheels. That's what you mean, right? Panting, she said to Drini, 'cause of my coloring? She pointed to the sign's tiny letters. I take the E out, Drini said. It's bluish, without the E. Oh, okay, Bluish said. You fix it. Drini got a marker and crossed out the E. There. Bluish. Okay, said barely above a whisper. We've gotten used to her, sort of. Drini was thinking. Each day with her around is different. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. What a freaky kid. You can tell she's been sick bad, maybe a long time. And you can't help feeling sorry for her. Still, Bluish was like nothing Drini had ever seen. When she got an upset stomach, as she sometimes did, Drini didn't want to be around her. Every kid got anxious when it happened. Some kids said there was an odor around her and her chair, like medicine. One time a kid said, "Hey girl, you smell like the clinic." And Bluish said right back, "Airhead, your pea brain's crawling out the door." The kid, it had been Kevin Smith, didn't know what to make of her. Most kids didn't. She always had something peculiar to say when a kid was nosy or dumb acting. About a half hour before lunch, Tuli had gotten bored and was chicka-chicka-chicking up and down the room. She stopped by Bluish, who was reading a book from the bookcase. "What's them things you got there in your lap next to the doggy?" she asked. Bluish answered, "You want one?" "One what?" "They're fitted hats that come down low on your head," Bluish said. "It's what I wear." "Why?" Tuli asked. "'Cause that's why." Bluish sounded hoarse. She had talked more today than usual, Drini realized. Bluish handed Tuli a hat out of a small plastic bag. "Ooh," Tuli said, and she put it on. The hat was knitted in blue and gold with a purple background. "I got too much hair." "No, you don't," Bluish told her. Her little voice squeaked almost to losing it. She took another hat from the plastic bag and held it out to Dreenie. Really? I get to wear it? Dreenie asked. I made it for you. You can have it. Dreenie couldn't believe it. That's so nice, she said. Thank you. They were talking quietly, not to cause too much attention, but other kids saw and came over and hung around like they wanted a hat too, until Max asked if they had finished their work. Bluish watched in the frowning way she had as Dreenie tried on her hat. Dreenie thought it was beautiful, the prettiest one of all. It had a gold background, it had a red stripe, and a spring green one. It looks like Christmas, Dreenie said. She stuffed her hair under and pulled the hat low over her ears. Bluish nodded okay. There was a mirror on the closet door. Dreenie and Tuli looked at themselves. I got too much hair, Tuli said. It don't look right on me. But she was admiring herself. You don't have to put all that hair under it, Dreenie told her. Just let it out. Bluish wants us to wear them, she whispered. Okay, I get it, Tuli whispered back. But it don't look right on me. In the mirror, Bluish was there with them. She'd come up from behind. Dreenie laughed. She hadn't expected to see her. Dreenie and Tuli stood still looking at themselves at the hats and Bluish in her hat. We look way cool, Bluish murmured. Tuli pulled her hair down from under the hat. Her curls sprang around as if they had a life of their own. I am the baddest. I kid you none, Tuli said. She is the silliest, no doubt about it, Dreenie thought. It was then that she realized Bluish was standing, the same as they were. Bluish, Dreenie exclaimed. Something bright and alive suddenly drained from Bluish's eyes. She turned away. That quickly her mood had changed. She took a paperback off the bookshelf. A minute later, she shakily put it back. She was hobbling now as if her legs wouldn't hold her up. She went over to study the big dictionary, which was always in place at the end of one of the tables. When she got up 5 minutes later, it took her a long time. She made her way to her chair, holding on to things. There she rested, with Lucky in her lap. Turned in the chair, looking for Miss Baker. There were strings of saliva hanging out of her mouth. Miss Baker saw her, came to her. Call my mom, Bluish whispered. Please? Miss Baker gave her tissues for her mouth. Then she said something to Max, and he left the room. Bluish closed her eyes, held the tissues to her lips. Go about your business, Miss Baker told them. Then Bluish fell asleep. The class made more noise shushing one another than if they'd just stayed quiet. That was what Miss Baker told them. Max came back and wheeled Bluish away. Journal. Bluish. What Bluish had to say. A few days later, Bluish must have told Miss Baker. Class, Natalie has something to tell you, Miss Baker said. And Bluish said, now, don't get me wrong, but me and my mom made some hats. See, I had to stay in bed when I got real sick way before, and then I found out I could do things with my hands. Bluish all the time has to stop, take a breath. So, since I've been home, we finished making knit hats for everybody here. My mom helped me. Can you believe it? Every kid smiled at her and walked up to her to give her a high five. You move your hand slow at Bluish. You don't jerk fast because she can't get out of the way and you might hurt her. Kids gave her low 5 fingers. Kids said, you didn't have to. That's a lot of work. I didn't bring anything for you. And Bluish said, I already did it. I don't want anything. And each kid got one. Bluish said, here, Jody, to Miss Baker. A lot of kids called the teachers by their first names. In my other school where I went, we didn't. So I call her Miss Baker. Everybody held their hats. Kids didn't want to look foolish. Bluish said, well, they're yours. You can wear them when you want. And kids sang Bluish's name. Bluish, Bluish. Well, that's what we call her. At Bluish's. Bluish's mom, I don't think she likes me. But I went to her house. Bluish, me, and Tuli, and Willie. Why come? Because Bluish said we could, too. So funny, my bratty sister. Crawled up on the bed. They had Game Boys, but Willie put her thumb in her mouth, curled up by Bluish in her bed, and went to sleep. Bluish looked at Willie like she was a doll baby. Bluish's little mouth gave a grin. I felt so good. I knew Bluish wanted us to be there. Tuli sat on a chair, couldn't sit still, and had to touch everything in the bedroom. Real nice place over on the Weston, near 103rd Street. None of us was scared anymore. She lived in this apartment called a Classic 8. 8 rooms, big as a house. I loved it. And Lucky the dog has a little bed on the floor in Bluish's room. Little black fur legs running, barking its little dog bark. So cute. Oh, I wish. We were sorting pictures of Broadway. Her mom had said it was too cold for Bluish that Wednesday when we went out for our project. Willie had said, shoot, we could have helped Bluish have some fun. So I had to take all the pictures without her. My dad's camera. Tuli showed us stuff. I know stuff about our hood, but Paula doesn't. She's from Brooklyn. But Tuli just sees stuff that I miss. She found this place. It was an Irish bar at a Chinese restaurant. Not too big, but maybe 6 booths for eating egg rolls and stuff. Cool. Called Mr. Side by Side with a green 4-leaf clover in Chinese writing. How'd I miss it? We only looked in. Then I took its picture. The yellow door and red letter sign. Tucked in there between a butcher's and a cleaner's. I took them too. I never even saw it. Maybe Mr. Side by Side only just got there. We got the film developed in a day. An evening later, Bluish called and said to bring the pictures over. She might be out the next day. So we did. We get there and I spread all the pictures on top of asleep Willie, and real easy, Bluish reached one to look at. Paula couldn't come. Said it would be okay whatever we picked. But if there's one she loved, we'd have to use it. Said she loved Lightly Shoes, Barzinis, and Jay's Fishes. Bluish, her mom. She is Rita Winburn. Bluish's mom comes in and we stare at her and wait. Somehow we blurt our names. She has brought out little cakes and milk. Tuli says, ooh, nice. We eat the cakes, I wake Willie. Bluish's mom is standing at the door with her arms crossed. Bluish kind of folds the bed covers up to her chin. She eats nothing. Her mom has dark hair and creamy skin. She's not brown. I've seen Bluish's dad. Mr. Winburn is brown. I'm sort of sweet chocolate color. Tuli's more honey color. Bluish would probably be the combined creamy and brown, her mom and dad, if she wasn't sick. But she is this ill color, not like anybody. She's bluish because I saw her and she made me think of moonlight. But she might get creamier, get rid of the blue someday. I hope so. We can hope and pray, Tuli once said. Bluish's mom is standing there. And then her mom says, don't call her bluish. That's not nice. That is derogatory. I stood up. I must have shook my head. Don't you know it is not nice? Her mom asked. Would you like her to call you bad names? Looking right at me. Tuli was standing, staring at the mom, and then at me. Bluish peeked through her fingers. That's not it, Mummy, Bluish said. I know what you were thinking and you were wrong. Tuli waited for me to say, but I couldn't. I didn't want to talk. I felt so bad. And then Tuli says, all fast, you tell her mom, green, please, missus? And I couldn't. And then Bluish says, Mom, it's not black and Jewish. Blewish, like a bad word. She spelled it out for her mom. Because I am so pale from the chemo, I'm a somewhat bluish color, get it? She spelled it out. Bluish. And without the E in the blue, Bluish said. Drini didn't mean anything bad. I didn't mean Anything bad. That's what I told the mom. I finally got it out. I wouldn't. Bluish said, I bet not the other kids either. I bet only a few started it. Black and Jewish. She's not anyone but Bluish. Bluish. It was Willie, spelling it and saying it to Bluish's mom. Willie holding her hands up because they are sticky with cake. She pipes up again, my kid sister. She's Bluish. She's our friend. And then grinning all over her face. Willie, my bratty sister. And made Bluish's mom laugh. And Miss Winburn said, well, I'd feel much better if you called her Natalie. They do sometimes, Bluish told her mom. And we said we did, although not. But I never even knew the Blewish part. What of that? I mean, I never even thought to call her bad because she's Black and Jewish. I thought the kids were saying Bluish. And what of the Bluish? Well, it's like Willie said, Bluish made me stop and look. She made me care about what was all so scary, so sad, and so hurt with her too. To me, she is just Bluish child, Bluish ill serious, Bluish close with us. Someday Bluish, just like us. Maybe. And that is the end of this chapter. Tune in for chapter 5 next time.